Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Everyone have a good weekend?
That's it.
Cool. First things first, bring it in because I mumble.
What?
Yeah. So closer, closer.
Feel like you're yelling at us.
What's that?
Feel like you're yelling.
All right. So I have defects of the 8 wastes. Does anyone remember what the first 2 of the wastes were? Transportation. What was the other one?
Overproduction.
Okay. It was excess, yeah, excess inventory. What was that?
Don't click this year part. Click this grade.
There we go. Okay, grateful and proud of. I'll start first. Some of you may know, some of you may not know. My wife was in a pretty bad accident back in April. So she just started back at work 3 weeks ago now. So
Nice.
pretty grateful for that. Anybody else?
I got one. Go, Tim, go first.
Go, Tim.
I'm grateful that I get to work every day with Bryce, and I'm proud of him because I get to see him develop as a person. Now, there we go.
I'm proud of my brother, my older brother. He
Okay.
has done like daily art for this artist that we all listen to, me and like him and my friends. Go out, take it to a concert for his on Friday, and he got noticed on Instagram by the dude that he makes the art for, and we all 8 of us got upgraded to VIP for free.
I saw pictures.
So we were front row at his school.
Nice. Anybody else?
I'm proud of my youngest son Cooper. He had his first cross country meet this weekend and had his PR of his life. So
What was the distance?
2 mile. He's a junior high cross country 2 mile done it. Wasn't real impressive, but good time for him. 15:39.
What was the pace?
15:39 was his time on the 2 mile.
Okay. Anybody else?
Proud of my son yesterday, so he's playing fall Little League baseball. He got hit by a ball. I think it was during spring Little League on the pitching machine, and they asked him to catch a couple weeks ago at a game, and he didn't do it. Well, he got asked to do it again yesterday, and he manned up and put the gear on and went out there and did a great job. So proud of him for that. And then my daughter had her first travel ball scrimmage yesterday with her new team, and they all played really well, and she played very well around it. So it's good for the day.
I'm grateful for the developing relationship with my oldest mother. We got to go to the fireworks on Friday, and him and Bentley, Max and Bentley, were just 2 peas in a pod. They were running around causing chaos. It was great. And then got to watch fireworks go off. And it's just nice holding both your kids at the same time, just watching cool stuff. I don't know. It was just an awesome moment for me.
I'm proud of my youngest son Jackson. We went to a college visit last week on Tuesday, and he got off to play baseball in college. So
Woo!
nice about that.
Oh, we got an official offer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's excited.
Nice. Anybody else?
I got one more grateful for Dave Campbell and his huge balls way to the Lions last night.
Right on.
All right. All right. So what is a defect? This is probably the best definition I guess I could find for kind of what we do day to day. Any imperfection, deficiency, flaw, weakness, limitation, or undesired outcome within a product, service, or process. So how does that kind of tie into what we do? These are just a few examples that I could find. I've got a lot. If anyone wants to see any more. But this is a few examples. So for this one, this is a spindle sleeve that's welded on crooked in this bumper. So at least that's our guess because the customer lives in California, I think. But that's why this carrier is kind of angled downward. And what we ended up having to do was refund her a lot of money because the other option was to ship a bumper back and forth to fix that one. This one, somewhat common, I guess, for this particular bumper over the years. Every now and then it pops up, but the wings on one side would be kind of tilted upward, whereas the other one would be normal or tilted downward. Next one. So hanging marks for powder coat. So these are all customer pictures, by the way. This is where I got these from. Hanging marks for powder coat. This one we couldn't really figure out what that was, but some sort of blob of powder coat that was sitting on top of the sidebar of the roof rack. This one was a Colorado under seat moly panel that was missing the side panels. And these are all going out to the customer this way. So we're finding out because the customer's emailing us, not necessarily happy that they received something like that. This one's gonna be hard to read. I'll read it for you. I just received my Ford Bronco. Front bed moly panel looks great, but I'm missing one of the outer corner brackets. Only one was in the box. Order info below. So we shipped out one of those with only one of the two brackets. And then, oh, sorry, that was didn't mean to put that one in there. Well, I guess while that one's up there, Joel, the JT rear Vanguard that you're currently dealing with. You want to talk about that one a little bit? What's going on with that? The one that we just had to put a new one on his order?
With the weld check there.
No, so basically the JT rear Vanguard was supposed to have a weld on the inside, a weld on the outside. The weld on the outside is ground down. We didn't weld the inside of that, just the outside and ground it down. So when the customer got it, it cracked open. So he of course lives in California also. So instead of having to ship that back and forth, it was one of our discontinued ones. So we're just sending him a new bumper to replace that one. But just another example of a defect that ended up in the hands of a customer. All right, common examples. So give me one example. Machining, Monty. Can you think of any common, it could be something that we get from a supplier, comes in defective already, then we have to spend time, we have to waste time fixing that before we can make the product.
So sometimes we'll get our flat stock comes in and it's just scratched out with shit.
Mhm.
And then that's pretty much looks like that time that not company can scratch it out. So that was a common problem. I think it's under control again. It kind of comes and goes.
Yeah. So how much time do you then have to waste
So then you
fixing that?
sort through and figure out what you can use, what you can't use. So
Yeah.
that takes time, right? And then obviously the sheets that you can't use, that's the defects.
Right.
We spend time as well for sorting it, so.
Yeah, because then you have to scrap whatever you can't use.
Yeah.
Fab, I know we've used the light tabs
Yeah,
for the past 4 meetings.
you get
Any
cracks
other
in
ones?
welds, missing welds, shitty looking welds.
There we
crooked
go.
Ass welds.
There we go.
Seen,
Okay.
Seen a few cool parts of the process too that we get from Laser where
Yeah.
like all the, like we had a carrier last week, the one of the bolts wasn't all the way knocked out. For the little support bracket to lock into, so we had to go through the cutoff tab and bracket to be able to get.
That's
it
all
on the carrier
wasted
to follow.
time.
So it's just, yeah, things that, I think we can be mindful internally.
Yep. Yeah, because it's not only defects, because like Brian said, it costs a lot less if we fix it back here, because as soon as it gets to a customer, then it's hundreds or thousands of dollars to fix that mistake. Shipping. Shipping damage. Yeah, yeah. Oh, did I go too far? How do I go back? There we go.
Sometimes we get products coming up from, especially when it's humid out, get some surface rust that starts to develop on the catch. Been really good about it, but it happens from time to time. It looks stupid and then
Mhm.
it's a defect, it needs to get cleaned up before it makes it powder coat. Another example, we had some nuts coming in for the spindles. And those nuts did not thread out of the spindles. Monty made it work, but a couple of them ordered it.
That was a little while ago, wasn't it? I think I remember that because we had some that ended up we had to replace.
And then, of course, got the tech sheet, certain mistakes.
Yeah.
And the tech sheet every.
Which some of that isn't always the customer actually didn't receive it. Some of it's the way that it was packaged too. It wasn't in a place that they thought to look, or got eaten up by the foam or something like that too. So powder coat.
I have to say the same thing, rust is our biggest issue,
Okay.
recoats as well, because the whole point of putting primer on cars is that protects the salt, but when you're coating over reworks. If you're down to the metal, we only powder coat over, so there's no primer underneath that powder. coat.
Right.
So we can get it right the first time, that's the biggest.
Engineering.
Boy. And just like anywhere else, there's defects, we can create defects or find defects in almost everything we do, but you think of. Like, from time to time, when, you know, a lot of times when we fit something, we're so rapid with our development at times, like the floor grips and stuff, that we'll add a hole to something that we didn't know it needed during the install, to find out it needs a big tie-in or something. And if that hole doesn't make it back into the design before, when there's times where we catch little things like that after we want the product. When the first one there, you know, Tim's assembling or Bryce or somebody's assembling the first one, we realized there was changes made in the last step that then become defects if they're on. Another one is my, kind of not our defect, but a cost defect for us, I traded the Bronco and it got a brand new Canyon. And it had a defective engine and wiring harness for over 6 weeks, which going back to the waste, huge waste of time for us.
Right, when we're trying to release product.
Tim had my front bumper, my front doors on the shelf back there for 4 weeks. We finally got the truck back and they bolted up and sent right to power code. And then bumper could have been, you know, a month before. So.
We had a defect this weekend where a customer private messaged me asking about reusing a factory bolt on a molly panel install on a GX 550, saying that the bolt wasn't long enough. By the time we were able to shake an answer out on a Sunday, it was, you're not supposed to use the factory hardware. We actually included the correct hardware. So the guy's like, I had a bolt for it, but in the install document, it said reuse your factory hardware. So there was a defect built in there.
Yeah.
Also, using Gemba docs for the first time, Colin was actually able to fix the defect immediately, right, yesterday, changed the wording, and now we're fixed.
Which is nice, so you don't have to wait a couple weeks for it to get fixed.
Engineering.
What's that?
Sometimes when we go from steel to aluminum, we forget, you know, little holes that gotta be widened for the thickness of the material, or stuff doesn't slots and tabs are always an issue kind of, but I think we're weeding them out as we're going through this SOP process.
Chris? CS and sales?
Since we don't touch the product so much like you guys do back here, I think for us, defects can come in the form of processes, like what Corey was talking about. There've been a couple times that I know that I've done it, Bill's probably done it, Corey probably done it, where maybe I haven't asked all of the questions. And instead of a person just missing a bracket or something from a molly panel, they also needed, you know, 1 or 2 little bolts. And now I have to ship a second package because I didn't follow all the questions. I didn't ask all the questions to follow the process, you know, exactly the right way. So I think that, you know, double shipments, inefficiencies up the front desk, that's the easiest way for us to create defects.
Not calling the customer back when you say you're gonna call the customer back.
Not calling customer back.
That's great.
That's a good one. Accounting. John here?
Yeah.
Oh. Or even Emily, because I know she's got something probably.
Well, I would welcome to speak up. A lot of it's just inefficiencies or making mistakes, if you're in a hurry. You know, then you have to press things.
Okay. And marketing.
Microphone. Yeah.
What was that?
I spent a lot of time with microphones.
Oh.
We have issues there, kind of go back to 3.2 or spend time trying to play with audio and fix that, back end things. I'll find another one with something. Kind of like what Alex said, as far as like our quick prototyping process. I can't tell you how many times we put a bumper on a vehicle during that prototype process that we now then need to get photographs of and everything to get up on the website. And had to ask Cameron Morgan to Photoshop that to get it to look right, because that prototype doesn't actually fit properly. And then sometimes on the back end, we don't always go back and fix those, and what you guys want to have.
I've seen that.
Parking lot thing doesn't properly represent the product as well.
Good. Yeah, I've seen that before. All right, so what causes defects? So inadequate training, I think, is the easiest one, right? If somebody doesn't tell you to put light tabs in, you're not gonna put light tabs in, or if somebody told you to put light tabs in 6 months ago and you haven't built the bumper since then, something easy to forget. Unclear or non-existent operating procedures. So that would kind of play into SOPs. So if you didn't have an idea of how it went together and everyone that builds that bumper does it slightly different, that's all variability and could potentially lead to a defect. Operator error, so that's just not paying attention, messing something up. Unmaintained or broken machinery. So that could be like the back gauge is off or something like that when you're bending products. You don't know it's off, you're just kind of bending stuff, and that then creates a defect. Dirty environment. So that could be something like hats and shirts. You're going to grab a hat out of the box to give to a customer. It's dusty and dirty up there. We end up sending a hat that has a stain on it or something like that.
I'd say defective material. We
Yeah.
get something right from the supplier that's defective.
Oh, for sure. And that's wasted time to fix that end just to figure it out. All right, what defects cause? So reduce capacity. So we can't build as much of the new product as we want to build because we're fixing old stuff. So we can't build the new orders that come in because we're busy fixing. Longer lead times. So obviously, since we're not building those newer orders, our lead times are going to go up. So we can't build the new orders that come in. Rework loops, which all kind of plays into the reduced capacity. Instead of building those new orders, we're wasting time, we're fixing things. So it's not only us figuring it out when the customer contacts us, but then it has to come back to Tim. He has to help us figure out what's going on, or one of the engineers has to help us figure out what's going on. Then we have to ship it back, shipping receives it, and then we have to take it back and have somebody fix it. So just a lot of wasted time there. Missed delivery promises, which actually we ran into with the JT rear Vanguard. So we promised a customer that their order was going to ship last week. And instead, one of those Vanguards went to that customer instead that was getting the warranty bumper. So that has potential. I mean, that one was easy to smooth out, but that has potential to create an upset customer. Lower productivity. Because again, just like the reduced capacity, we're not focusing on the new orders that are actually going to be making us money. We're fixing old stuff that we already shipped out of the building. Damaged company reputation. That might end up on Facebook. That guy that was looking at the install guide and it said to use the factory bolt. And then it's just comment after comment after comment of, oh, I had this experience. Oh, I had this experience. And if that happens too many times, I mean, obviously that's going to damage reputation. Unhappy customers and customer complaints ties into the reputation thing as well. So the more times you piss off the customer, less likely they are to want to buy from you again. So
pretty important to also emphasize that. I would say that probably at least 40% of our orders come from returning customers. And so we already earned the customer. So now we gotta keep the customer because the customer will continue to buy. So the cost of losing that customer is pretty substantial, especially when Daryl has to then spend more marketing money to recapture a different customer when we have essentially already caught the fish and had it in our boat. So those are some of the things to think about when, you see a defect in the shop is, this is gonna turn around and bite me in the ass eventually, right?
it's always easier to sell somebody that's already been sold on your product than it is to try and find somebody new to sell them on.
And one of the things we've been kind of talking about was stopping. When you find a problem, you find a defect in the process, just stop, call it out, fix it. Like, don't move it forward, right? And ideally, we all become the quality check all the way through. And then we have more eyes on the product than we've ever had. And then our customers end up with a better product and they come back to us again. And Joel and Corey don't get yelled at by unhappy customers.
Well, we have a pretty unique perspective up front because, like Chris said, we're not the ones that are making anything. So we just see what happens, right? So we can potentially turn that into another sale. But to do that, you have to lose money to do that. Like, for example, this guy, we're we're sending a whole new bumper. So we're abandoning a $2,000 bumper that we already sent to them and we're shipping in our dime. So that's lost money there. He's happy, but that cost a lot extra than us just fixing that before it left the building.
Follow up with that, the lady with the carrier who's running downhill. Yeah, I gave her some money back and she's like, okay, I'll live with it. But every time she opens that, she's gonna think, you know? So it's just like that little tiny seed of negativity in the back of someone's brain. We can eliminate that before it leaves this building. That was 40% that Brian was talking about. There'd be so much, they won't have to jump over that hurdle of negativity to get to buying again.
And it's always Murphy's Law. So that lady or that guy, typically they're always going to be the ones that are also dealing with shipping damage on the replacement or missing bolts in the bolt pack. So it always compounds.
Why didn't we give that lady a new bumper?
We offered that. She chose the different option. She already installed it.
So one of the things in a lean world is that you're hard on the process and soft on the workers, right? So that's what you guys gotta remember. So like, we're not trying to browbeat anybody with defects and be like, catch these defects, right? We firmly are believing that it's a process problem, and if we can fix the process.
That's my next slide.
Thanks to the. So let's go to your next slide, see where we're at.
You can already see your slideshow, like you know.
I didn't hit it.
So it's hard to so it's hard to talk about defects because it's easy to turn into kind of like a blame game, right? Like so and so made this bumper, they should have just paid attention, or so and so powder coated this, they should have just did a better job. But it happens enough that that's not really a good solution. So how do you fix that? Good question. So the whole idea is to reduce variability in the process. So how do you add stability? You create a standard process, which SOP is a standard process, is essentially what we're talking about when we say SOPs. So that way there's less variability. So if one of the steps in that SOP says to weld on the bottom and weld on the top of that seam, it's very hard to miss that, right? Whereas if somebody told you 6 months ago to do that and you haven't built one since, it's very easy to kind of forget that kind of stuff. So thanks for leading me into that one. So that's kind of the importance of SOPs. So it's a pretty big undertaking, I feel like, right now for as much stuff as we have. But moving forward, I think that's going to be part of when we release new products, right, is to have a SOP for each product. So that'll in the long term help reduce defects. So I put this in here because of you. You asked last time how it tied into the rest of the waste. So I was like, that's a good idea. I'll put that in there. So overproduction, how does that tie into defects? So if we build 8 bumpers versus 1, that's 8 potential bumpers that then have the defect versus just the one. So it's a lot easier to fix, a lot easier to catch if it's just one. Whereas if we have a bumper that ends up on the shelf for 2 years, that we haven't, or whatever, year and a half that we haven't sold yet, then we go to sell it and we find out that it's got some sort of defect, and it's a lot harder to trace down what exactly caused that defect. Over processing, so that adds product touches to fix that product. So that's that rework loop that we were talking about. Excess inventory. So this happens a lot. So instead of making a completely, instead of fixing that the product that the customer has, we'll build a new one, ship it to them, and get the bad one back and fix it then. And we're sitting on something that we just had to fix for another couple of years that we then have to sell when we're getting ready to move. So, transportation. So does the product need to be transported back? So do we have to pay for shipping back to us? Do we have to ship something to the customer? Wasted motion. So the physical motion, obviously, to fix the product once it comes back to us and to make the new product to ship to them. And then waiting time. Also self-explanatory because it takes time to fix products. Unused skills and talent. So did that person get trained properly when when that defect was made or ended up in that product, did that employee get trained? Could we put more resources towards training for that or to avoid that particular defect? So what are the benefits of reducing defects? More profit. So a profit can go into a bunch of things. So it could go into a new building, it goes into new new machines, everything like that that you guys use on a daily basis. So it benefits you, it benefits us in general. So that wasted money also that turns into profit, but we're also wasting time. So we're wasting time, we're wasting resources, we're wasting basically anything that could be going into making new product that's going to be making us money versus fixing something and losing all of the profit in that particular product. And happy customers. Like we said, happy customers are going to want to buy from us. They're going to want to come back. They're more likely to buy from us rather than go online and bash us because they got something that was made incorrectly or got something that was missing a bolt hacker or whatever. Any questions?
I think on that last one, the most important one is that customer. I can tell you from 21 years of experience, when you're in that sweet spot of offering high quality products to customers, it's so much better than being on the other side where you're just a firefighter online trying to put out a fire because some dude's telling some guy not to buy $1,000 roof rack because we shipped them 2 right brackets of ditch light mounts.
Right.
So it's super
And it's
hard.
almost like it's like flow too. It's like when you're in that zone, it kind of pulls more people in, right? Like there's customers that they heard their friend had a good experience or so and so had a good experience.
Right.
So they're more likely to recommend you to other customers. But
Yeah, and Ryan's meeting coming up next week is gonna be to be the customer, right? To start putting your mindset in that idea that you're the customer. Now, on this Fan American manufacturing stuff, it's really easy to be the customer because we are the first customer. But I want you guys to think of that from the off-road perspective too, with those products, right? You're buying those products. How do you want it to look when you get it, right? How do you want it to feel? Do you want to make sure it has all the components, right? Think of the next person in line. And eventually that customer becomes that last person in line. And if we think about that next person in line, we take care of them all the way through.
so I've always kind of thought to myself, because I've dealt with this probably every single day for the past almost 10 years. So I've thought to myself, like, how do you get rid of defects? And it's really as simple as writing down the process and following the process. So that was kind of my biggest takeaway was the SOP thing and just following those SOPs to make sure that you don't have defects.
There are Kaizen opportunities too, to increase the quality of the product and reduce defects. If you can find a way to make your job easier, you're less likely to get lost in that process too, right? If all your stuff is in arm reach of what you're working on, you're less likely to walk all the way over to Tim's booth to find a clamp, to come back to your welding booth to forget where you were. So there's opportunities there too that you have to think about when you're setting yourself up and setting your workspace up to make sure that you're not just putting in distractions that can potentially lead to defects as well.
Yeah, I listened to a podcast over the weekend, and the company was talking about how they went 29 days with no defects, getting to a customer. So they went 29 days with not having one customer contact them with a defect. And I was like, that would be very nice. I don't know how we get to that point.
Like, I don't know, millions of things that Toyota shipped, there was only like 7 defects. The supplier for Toyota. Yeah, the supplier.
Yeah, so
Millions of parts.
yeah, so getting to that point would be
One other thing
Would be nice.
we talk about where we had a lot of discussion about components coming in the building.
Mhm.
And I do think that we have to be a little tighter about that. So we need to hold our outside vendors
Just as
accountable for their
accountable.
defects as if we're gonna be held for our defects, right? So if we do get something that has a defect, we don't just, well, now I'm gonna use it because I'm out of time, right? We just say, no, we're not gonna use this, come get it. In replacement, right? And that relationship has to evolve with our vendors as well. When they realize that we're ratcheting up our expectations, just like our customers are ratcheting up their expectations on us,
Mhm.
which have never been higher. Their expectations of customers since COVID are insane. Everybody expects everything for nothing and everything to be perfect and they want you to pay them the same way. I mean,
Even if it's unreasonable.
it is crazy.
Especially if it's already.
So at the same time, we can do the same thing, we can ratchet up, but it comes down to that stop, right? Stop. I can probably make a video for you guys on hand-on system, explaining the hand-on system and how we're planning to move forward with MES. So maybe I'll do that and I can post that so you guys can all see that, because that kind of ties into a lot of this defects for something that we do have coming. But yes, when you get something that's messed up, just stop, right? And then let's just make it right before we start the process. I don't want to be in a position where we have to grind, you know, gouges out of the sheet of steel, right? I'd rather just not start there.
A lot to do with the aluminum. Yeah, scratch.
So then we have to find. So in lean manufacturing, you have to find the root cause, right? So you can continue to fix this, but you need to go and find the root cause. So what is the root cause? Is it how we're handling it? Is it how the material is being handled to us? So that's something that we have to find.
On the aluminum gouges, we had a customer once, and as ridiculous as it sounds, it's a true story. We had a customer once that was blasting us all over Facebook. I don't even think you were here yet. Was blasting us all over Facebook because we advertised that bumper's 1/4 inch, right? And he measured it and it was just under 1/4 of an inch. Because obviously you're gonna grind a little bit and finish it. So the more you have to grind off, you could potentially end up in a situation where this crazy person on the internet is blasting us on every forum and Facebook page just because it's a little bit thinner than what we say it is.
Well, I saw an example of just a video I saw where they had sheaths for the forks on the forklift. When they do handle aluminum, they have these soft sheaths that go over the fork so they don't gouge when they move it.
When we were in Europe, we saw Galvin bolted to the forks. So we just have to figure out what the problem is. We can start working on that, right?
But that's an easy thing. If you see that that's a common thing, then you guys can put something like that together.
Yeah, but I think if we stop and we say, hey, here's a problem, then we go and look for the root of the problem. You know, that's kind of what I envisioned for Joe and Casey and Bryce to be able to do, is to be able to, you guys say, hey, here's a problem, and they go and find the source and stop the source, right? It's like one of those things where it's like, you want to like, in anything you want to do, you want to find the source and in the source, so you don't have to continue to repeat the process, right? Now, there's certain things you're going to run into where you can't stop, right? Like grinding, for example, right? There's no perfect solution to catch all the grinding dust. So there's going to be some factor of that we're going to have to continue to deal with. But there's other things that you can go and find the source and eliminate the problem. You just have to be willing to stop and do that.
I think just to reiterate and tie back what you're saying, kind of what we talked about earlier, but I mean, the scratches and gouges in the aluminum, that's so simple, it's something that bugs you, right? So it's just going back to the improvement phase of what bugs you. Go improve it and cause it.
Yeah, just because you think maybe that it's outside of your scope of what your 2-second improvement is, right? That was where we've been talking about, like, making a list of things, right? Because as a team, we can tackle bigger things. So I do want you guys to think like on that level, like think of all the things that bug you. And even if it becomes a high-end thing that we have to fix at a higher level, and then maybe you're not necessarily involved in the process of fixing it, but it gets fixed, that's an improvement as well.
Plan on getting a whiteboard, had that whiteboard there for quite a while on the wall by the light switch. Plan on putting a whiteboard there. And we can just put a list on there, things that bug you, no case, got a whiteboard, might be stairs, same idea.
Would you guys rather use a WhatsApp subgroup for bugs? And then you can just post them in there instead of a whiteboard?
They're not gonna do a whiteboard, because they gotta walk by it. Yeah, let's take over that it doesn't get lost.
I mean, stuff got lost when we used the whiteboard before though, too.
Well, I think we can find a discussion for that, man. Yeah,
I think there's a then versus now too, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
for
we're
sure.
all different than everybody is now.
Yeah, I think there might be a better solution that doesn't involve open waste from Nate Baldwin walking from all the way back there to right on the whiteboard, right there. So I think we just gotta think about how we wanna execute that a little better. We can talk about that.
I think we already did this. Oh, no, what did I do? All right, we're done. Yeah.
We chose the guys at the front desk to do the defect slide because they see it the most, but also they're the ones that see all the negativity that none of the rest of us see all the time. I mean, if you get on Facebook, you'll see the mad customers are always the loud ones, but Corey, Chris, and Joel are the ones that I'm sure they go home on days that they got the loud ones that day and they're like, shit, we don't do anything right. Or our defects are a low percentage of what.
No, they're way better than they used to be too.
We put out so many, we have, you know, 100 customers, 100 happy customers to the 2 or 3 that are mad on an average day probably, and getting to what you said about 29 days with no defects is like a total achievable. I mean, with these SOPs, look at how many we've already done, and Joe and I have been here, not the longest by any means, but we saw the turnover of probably 3 or 4 groups of people that have worked here, and the people that are standing in the room are definitely the ones that could get us to, you know,
29 days.
40 days with no defects, or more with no defects. Compared to what it has done, so it's like, that's not unachievable by any means.
I don't, and maybe that's the metric we want, you know what I mean,
Right.
like, you're looking for a metric to track a company, right? I don't, is that the one that we all feel passionate about or not, you know?
If it is, we can start tracking it.
We're
at- We're at 0 currently.
Days without defect calls. That's a serious though, because on a Monday, or even like last week, right, we had a 3-day weekend, which means that the 3 of us come into a huge pile of emails from everybody who's trying to do it that weekend, right? Some of them were just product questions, like, can you ship this to Toronto? I can't figure out how to do the website. Some of them are, does this fit my, you know, Dodge Ram pickup truck? But a lot of them are, hey, I had a problem with this, hey, I had a problem with this, hey, I had a problem with this. So there'll be, you know, 30 tickets on a Monday morning that are just problems that people came through on the weekend.
And they're
So
extra
not-
pissed because it was the weekend and they couldn't get help from us.
Right, so to come in on a Monday morning and not have 30 can you help me questions? I would love that metric. I would love that metric, not because it makes my life easier, it does. But because look at how great that makes us look to those 30 people that weren't frustrated all freaking weekend. You know? I love that metric. If I was a metric, I want to date that metric.